All right, back on the record in the Simpson matter. All parties are present. Let's have the jury, please. All right, let the record reflect we have now been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. Officer Robert Riske is still on the witness stand on redirect examination. Officer Riske, you're reminded you're still under oath. Ms. Clark, you may continue your redirect.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Two, please.
This is P54-3, Your Honor.
All right, P54, paren 3.
You remember Mr. Cochran showed you this photograph last week?
Yes, I do.
And you see the position of the envelope?
Yes.
And it's just a little bit above that grouting that's in the lower right-hand corner of the photograph?
Right.
Okay. Can we get the perspective shot? Okay, if we could cut the feed for the next one, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'd ask it to be marked P59.
All right, P59.
Okay, then you see in this photograph that Mr. Goldman is present.
Yes.
And you see the envelope in that photograph?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to zoom in on the position of the photograph.
One, please.
We're losing it. There we go. Push it up slow, Jonathan. Thank you. See the position of the envelope in this photograph, sir?
Yes, I do.
Appear to be the same in the last photograph you saw, P50, in the last photograph that we showed you?
Yes.
With respect to the grouting and everything?
Right.
Okay, so you can see that the body is in place in this photograph.
Yes, ma'am.
And in the previous one as well.
Yes.
And
Well, you
now,
couldn't see the
please-
body in the previous.
Yes. But you can see that the position of the envelope is the same.
Right.
And do you see a numbered tag in this photograph?
No, I don't.
Did you see a numbered tag in the previous photograph in which the envelope is in the same position as in this one?
No.
Okay. Good.
May this be marked as People's 59A?
All right, print 59A.
Two, please.
Okay, now you recall that Mr. Cochran showed you this photograph
Yes.
with a numbered tag in it?
Yes,
And-
ma'am.
Okay, and you saw that the envelope was slightly moved.
Moved.
Okay, was moved?
Moved.
Okay,
Yes.
moved. Okay.
This photo is P56F.
All right, now let me show you perspective. Photograph that you were not shown by Mr. Cochran. Do you see the envelope here?
P58.
All right, that has not been shown thus far
That has not been shown thus far,
by either party.
correct?
Thank you.
Actually, I think I do have this photograph already marked.
I think this may be on one of your boards.
You see this photograph, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
You see
this is
the-
what photograph?
Should we mark?
P56H.
This is
56H.
P56H. Yes, it has been marked, Your Honor. And shown. You see the position of the envelope in this photograph, sir?
Yes, I do.
And if we could zoom in. And you see the body's been removed in this photograph.
Right.
One, please.
Okay. You see the position of the envelope in this photograph?
Yes.
Now, in this photograph in which the body has been removed, does the envelope appear to be in the same position as the close-up shown to you just before this one?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to that one and I'll look at that. Compare.
I'm sorry, which photo?
The,
Two, please.
does that appear to be in the same position as the perspective shot that I just showed you in which you can see that the body has been removed?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you also see the edge of a blanket in this photograph, sir?
Yes.
Was there a blanket there when you saw the bodies in place?
No.
All right, so what does it appear to be, what do you see here, sir, in the difference in the photographs that were shown to you?
Correct. Which photographs?
First of all, with respect to the envelope, would it appear that there were photographs taken before the bodies were removed?
Yes.
And would it appear then that after the bodies were removed, photographs were taken again?
Yes, ma'am.
It's also speculation. He wasn't there. He sort of told us that. Counsel leaving and suggested.
Your Honor,
Sustained.
as to what?
Leading and suggested.
Okay. You saw the photographs that we've just shown you, where photographs were taken of the envelope before the body was moved. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then we showed you a photograph of the envelope that was taken after the body was removed. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And in those photographs taken of the envelope after the body was removed, you see a numbered tag.
Yes.
And was there also a photograph taken of the glove before the body was removed?
Yes.
You saw that.
Yes, ma'am.
And then there was a photograph taken of the glove after the body was removed.
Yes.
And you saw that.
Yes, ma'am.
And you saw that there was a numbered tag on the glove after the body was removed. Is that correct?
Yes.
And in the photographs that were taken after the bodies were removed, the envelope and the glove appeared to you to be in a different position than they were before the body was removed. Is that correct?
Correct.
See the photograph that has been marked as People's 56K? It's number 105.
Yes, I do.
Appears to mark an evidence item of a ring.
I'm sorry, Ms. Clark, this is 56.
Okay, Your Honor?
Okay.
I'm going to put it up on the laser so everyone can see it. Can you see that, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you see that ring when you were there?
No, I didn't.
Of course, if it was under the body of Ron Goldman, you wouldn't have been able to. Is that right?
It's also
Right.
speculation, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Can you... Can we cut the feed for the next one, Your Honor?
Yes.
This is P55, Your Honor.
All right, who's that person pointing to the glove and the cap underneath the bush?
Detective Furman.
Now, you I think testified before that Detective Phillips and Detective Furman returned from Rockingham together. Is that right?
Right.
And it was at that point that you saw Detective Furman go and point to the evidence for the photographer?
Right.
And that's him wearing that white shirt and those beige pants?
Yes, ma'am.
And was that shortly?
55.
P55.
And was that shortly before you left and got off duty?
Yes.
And you got off duty about 7:15?
Right.
Okay. And was it, did Did you testify before that that Detective Furman and Detective Ron Phillips arrived at the scene at about 2:10, was it, in the morning?
I believe so. I don't recall what time it was.
Would it refresh your recollection, sir, if I showed you the crime scene log?
I didn't fill out the log, but it
No, I
would.
know
I didn't
that.
put the time in, but yes.
Pardon?
I didn't fill out the log and put the time in, but yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, Ms. Clark, you showing the officer the crime scene log,
Yes.
personnel log.
Yes, sir. I'm showing you what appears to be the crime scene log for 875 South Bundy. Do you recognize your name at the very top?
Yes, I do.
Because you were the first officer there.
Yes, my partner and I.
And do you see the entry for Detective Phillips and Furman?
Yes.
And do you see the time of their arrival stated?
Yes, I do.
And is that 2:10 in the morning?
Yes.
Does that refresh your
Excuse me, counsel, this is not the appropriate way to refresh somebody's recollection, is it?
I'm sorry.
They're supposed to read it to themselves rather than tell us what's there and ask that that refreshes their recollection.
Can you read that?
Yes, I can.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Generally, yes. I don't recall exactly what time I got there.
Does that appear to be, does that, what do you think was the time of their arrival, sir?
Overruled.
I believe it was right around 2:15.
Okay. Now, by that time, the crime scene, had it been secured
Yes.
for almost 2 hours?
Actually, about maybe an hour and 30 minutes, hour and 20 minutes,
You got there at
12:13.
12:13? And how long after getting there did you secure the crime scene?
It was secured when we started the search, which was 12:30, 12:40.
Okay. So between 12:30 and 12:40?
Right.
So by the time Detectives Phillips and Furman got there, the crime scene had been secured for hour and 30 to hour and 40 minutes?
Right.
And by that time, had you and Officer Terrasa seen the crime scene?
Yes.
And Sergeant Rossi? Had he seen the crime scene as well?
Right.
And Sergeant Kuhn and Officer Wally, had they been at the crime scene also?
Yes.
And that all happened before Detective Phillips and Detective Furman got there?
Yes, it did.
And by the way, Sergeant Kuhn, is he related in any way to the officer that testified in the Rodney King case?
No.
Sustained 3 times. 3 times we've asked that question.
I'm sorry, I didn't remember, Your Honor. Officer Riske, you were the first officer on the scene, right?
My partner and I, yes.
How many gloves did you see at Bundy?
1.
Thank you.
Mr. Cochran, any recross?
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor.
Officer Riske, a few questions if we might. If I might approach, Your Honor.
Certainly.
This photograph here on exhibit number, this is 56J. You see this photograph here where this is Mr. Goldman's foot shoe?
Yes.
Is that pretty to be red?
Orange or red.
Orange or red, and it's almost touching the glove, isn't it, on that photograph?
Right.
And this is obviously before the body was moved, right?
Yes.
And this is 56J, Your Honor.
G.
G, I'm sorry, 56G. And while we're up here, at 56G, the glove that you're able to see and this watch cap were under this kind of, this plant, basically. Is that correct?
Right.
The watch cap being more under the plant than the glove. Is that
Yes.
correct? All right. And so we see that. Now I want to borrow one of the people's exhibits, Your Honor. 56J. 55? Maybe see number 55, Jonathan.
People's 55.
Or actually, it's 55 or 50. 55.
Yes.
Yes. 55 is Detective Furman pointing at the hat and glove.
Okay, we'll start with 55, Your Honor. All right, now, in this photograph here, can you see that?
Yes, I can.
And Detective Furman, whom we now identified, is pointing under that same plant that was on 56,
G.
56G, Your Honor. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that photograph, he's pointing where the watch cap is and where the glove supposedly is. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go now to 55. 59, rather. People's 59. Now, and look, is that 59? Yes. In 59, does it look to you like the tennis shoe is in a different position than it was in the one we just finished looking at, 55?
It's hard to tell from that angle.
You can't tell?
No.
Let's look at 59A. I don't think that was 59. What is this?
This is people's 50, no, I'm sorry.
This is 59? All right. Look at those tennis shoes on 59. Now, I want you to look closely at 59. You see those white tennis shoes there?
I see one tennis shoe on the top of another one.
All right. Does it appear to be white to you?
From this distance, yes.
Is that, well, you saw it that night. It appeared to be white to you? The
Well,
tennis shoe?
with the orange on, I mean the red or orange color.
The one, I want you to look at this one here. Do you see this appear to be white to you?
Yes.
Okay. And is that's the right tennis shoe you're seeing there?
I believe so.
And that appears to be the white, doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is there a 59A, Jonathan?
Yes, we proved that. 59A is this.
I want you to take a look at 59A.
I need to make a
Oh, sorry. Now, this, Your Honor, is 59A. You see 59A?
Yes.
You see that white tennis shoe on that?
Yes, sir.
See the distance between that photograph, between that tennis shoe and that envelope?
Yes.
In this photograph, 59A, do you see any one of the tennis shoes by a glove in this photograph?
Objection, Your Honor, it's a different perspective. You can't see anything.
I'm asking him, Your Honor, not her.
I see one of the tennis shoes underneath the plant.
And where is that?
It's to the left of the photograph, or to the right of the photograph in the middle.
All right, do you see, does it appear to be white, the part you can see?
Yes.
Doesn't appear to be orange at that point, does it?
No.
And again, if we were to compare that photograph that you're looking at there now on the monitor with 56J.
Is it G or J?
56G, Your Honor, I keep calling it J, it's 56G. You see, in 56G, the tennis shoe appears to be almost touching the glove, is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, based upon Ms. Clark's questioning, sir, when you left the scene, you've already described for us that the bodies had not been moved, is that correct?
Right.
In fact, you can't even tell us whether or not the coroner had been called, could you? And you know,
That's relevant. Whether he knows a coroner's been called.
you become very relevant.
Oral. Answer stand.
Okay. You know from your experience that there's an obligation to call the coroner as soon as you arrive at the scene when they have dead bodies. You know that, don't you?
Objection, this is not the right witness.
Sustained. It's not relevant to this witness.
All right. Very well, Your Honor. At any rate, the bodies were still there when you left. Is
Yes,
that right?
sir.
And with regard to your previous experience, you told us that in other crime scenes, where a body's going to be moved, you've had situations where the evidence has been picked up, the body's moved, the evidence was put right back or marked where it was before. Isn't that correct?
Right.
You know it's important, is it not, to get the evidence right where it was and not be moved all around the scene. Isn't that correct?
It's close.
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled.
As close to where it was as you can.
That's right. You wouldn't want to move the evidence. Isn't that correct?
Right.
And in looking at these so-called striation marks, does it appear to you that Mr. Goldman's body was dragged across that envelope? Did you notice that on some of those pictures there's more dirt on the envelope than there were before the body was moved?
Objection, counsel testifying, since that's not evidence.
I'm asking him.
Sustained.
All right, let me ask this question.
Rephrase the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you look at the envelope that was on that, on the pictures? Let's just go up and pick a specific one. This is 56J. Have you seen 56J here?
Yes, sir.
And this is a photograph where the envelope has obviously been moved. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, with regard to 56J, let me get another photograph if I can. Now, you looked at 56J, right?
Yes, sir.
And I want you to look now at the monitor again. Does it appear to you there's more dirt and debris on that envelope at the time you were there and prior to it being moved, Mr. Goldman's body being moved?
It's not really a clear picture of the envelope.
Well, look at the envelope. See if you can tell.
Objection, Your Honor, the witness has said it's not a clear enough picture.
So he's asked the witness to look at it more carefully.
Look at it more carefully and see if you see the same dirt that you see on 56J that you see on, what's the one up there now, Your Honor?
This is, I think, 59.
59A.
Mr. Harris, can we focus that a little better?
It's the copy of the picture, it's a print.
All right.
This is 59.
Yes.
Can you tell?
I'm sorry, can we get a cover over that because I'm getting light reflection.
Can you tell from looking at 59 and compare that to 56H? 59 seems to have less debris on it than 56J.
It really looks about the same to me, sir.
It looks about the same to you. Does it look to you from those striations you were talking about that Mr. Goldman's body was dragged across these particular exhibits and exhibits were not moved before his body was dragged across them?
Objection,
I can't tell from those striations.
Well, strike that. In Ms. Clark's questioning, was she seeking to infer through your testimony these items had been moved by the coroner?
I don't know what she was trying to infer.
You don't know what she was inferring? All right. Let's go back to basics. The evidence, as I described for you last week and today, was in fact moved from where you had seen it. Isn't that correct?
Sir.
And based upon your training, evidence should not be moved by anyone at the crime scene. Isn't that correct?
Unless it's necessary, right?
And unless it's necessary?
Right.
Can you think of any reasons why it would be necessary to move somebody's evidence?
Well, if you take photos before and you have to get the bodies out, and then you put it back and take photos again.
But you described for us that under the procedure you understood, you would then put it right back where it was. Isn't that correct?
Well, as close as you
Objection,
can.
witness states the testimony.
Overruled.
Wouldn't you try to put the evidence, would you intentionally put evidence in a different location than it had been, officer?
No.
You wouldn't do that, would you?
No.
Isn't it important for a jury or a trier of fact to have the evidence exactly the way it was?
Asked and answered and argumentative.
Sustained.
One of the reasons that you put up the tape is so the evidence will not be interfered with and the integrity of the evidence is preserved. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
That's the whole reason for trying to preserve the scene, isn't it, sir?
That's correct.
All right. Now, with regard to the scene, you were shown these pictures. You were shown D1011. Shall I see that? And we've asked you earlier, you could not recognize this particular officer. Is that correct?
No.
But you have no doubt this is an LAPD officer. Isn't it?
I would assume from his uniform he is.
Similar to your uniform, right? Right?
Right.
All right. And in this particular photograph, we don't have the benefit of seeing whether the yellow marks are still up, do we?
No.
The yellow tape. But this officer's walking right up that walkway, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And whether this photograph was taken by American Journal, hard copy, or 60 Minutes, it's still a photograph of that scene, the crime scene at Bundy, walking up that walkway where you found these bodies, right?
It's a picture of the scene. I don't know if it's a picture of the crime scene.
Well, is that Bundy?
Yes.
All right. Is that part of the crime scene?
If the crime scene was still in effect at that time.
All right. Well, there's still a police officer there, is that correct?
Right.
And the police stayed around there for a while that day, is that correct?
Right.
You had left at 7:15 and you never came back, did you? On that date?
Not when it was still a crime scene, no.
Right. And by the time, and at some point when you came back, that scene had been washed down. All the blood had been washed away, is that correct?
Right.
You can tell from this picture, D1011, that the blood had not been washed away yet, isn't that correct?
Right.
Now, you described for us how it would be good to try and preserve the evidence and various things because as the first officer on the scene, you just want to kind of preserve things till the detectives who were basically more experienced arrived. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And wouldn't it be helpful, though, if regard to this melting ice cream, if you had a picture of that ice cream, the condition it was in when you were there? No?
I think we've gone over
Well,
this.
she asked, I don't want to argue that. I would
You've
ask
got-
leave. I know, but not this question, Your Honor. I'd ask leave to ask this question. Ask leave, Your Honor. Did she ask a question with regard to this, and I think I should admit it to.
Yeah, but I think I stopped both of you because we've gone through. We know there are no photographs, correct?
I don't know.
He didn't see any photographs taken. Next question.
All right. You were asked the condition of the ice cream by Ms. Clark about the mass and it was melting on the sides. Remember those questions?
Right.
Wouldn't the best evidence of the condition of that ice cream be a photograph of how it appeared when you saw it at 12:35 a.m. on June 13th, 1994?
Sustained. Sustained.
Now, with regard to your going inside the premises, sir, and using the phone, so that we're clear, you could have in fact called your superior, Sergeant Rossi, on your rover, right?
Sure.
Some of the officers at the scene also had cellular telephones, did they not?
Not till later, no.
At some point they did, but you don't know they had them at that point?
I found out later Sergeant Kuhn had one, and then detectives, when they showed up, had one.
Detective Phillips had one also, right?
Right.
But so that you wouldn't alert the press, you went inside and you used Miss Nicole Brown Simpson's phone, is that correct?
Not just for that reason, no.
I mean, but you used that phone.
Right.
And you didn't have any gloves on when you used the phone, did you?
No.
And with regard to prints on that phone, you use your prints on that phone, right? Were you seeking to preserve prints when you dialed the phone?
I really wasn't even thinking about Prince when I picked up the phone.
You weren't thinking about it at the time, right? Okay. And with regard to the redial button, if any, on that phone,
Objection, Your Honor. This witness has already testified he does.
Sustained.
with regard to the star 69 feature on that phone, if any,
Sustained.
did you see on that phone an automatic dialer to the left of the phone that had dad and other numbers right to the left of that phone as you sat there and started to dial?
Objection,
I
Your
don't
Honor.
recall.
That'd be very relevant.
Overruled.
I don't recall.
You don't recall seeing
No.
an automatic dialer?
I really don't recall.
You
No.
don't recall? Did you ever see any pictures taken of the phone?
No,
Never?
no.
Now, with regard to the media and their ability to plug into the frequency, don't you have different frequencies with the police department that you could use a different frequency where they couldn't monitor it?
We have TAC channels, but
Couldn't you have used that to contact the...
I don't know if they can be monitored or not. I don't know if a TAC channel can be monitored or not.
Well, the TAC channel?
Right.
Is that what you call it, TAC channel?
Right.
And you didn't use the TAC channel, though?
No, I didn't.
Miss Clark showed you a log involving Detectives Furman and Phillips. Do you recall that?
Yes.
In looking at that log, were you ever able to see whether or not they logged out to go over to Rockingham?
I didn't look at the entire log. I don't know.
All right, let me ask you. May I get the shot?
Why don't we save that for the officer who was maintaining the log?
Okay, Your Honor. I'll do that, Your Honor. Thank you very kindly. May I just take a second?
Sure.
I'd like to ask this officer one other question regarding that.
Certainly.
When you, with regard to the log at a scene, when you leave the scene, is it incumbent upon the officer to go to the person keeping the log and say, I'm leaving, check me out, when I come back, log me back in?
Yes.
That's the officer's responsibility,
Oh.
right? Right?
Yeah, yes.
All right. In speaking about the integrity of the evidence, Officer Riske, would you agree that if a body was dragged over key items of evidence in this case, there'd be a greater chance for contamination of that evidence than if the evidence had been lifted up or moved?
Speculation.
Oh,
Sustained. With this witness, counsel, you can ask that question of the investigating officer, the detective at the scene.
okay, Your Honor, I'll wait and I'll do that. But by the way, Officer Riske, you were asking questions about footprints in the area where that picture where Detective Furman had his foot and was pointing toward the so-called evidence. Have you ever seen a situation where a plaster of Paris casts are used to determine footprints? You ever
No,
seen
I
that?
haven't.
In your experience, your 4 years, you hadn't seen that yet?
No.
And so that we're clear, as the first officer on the scene, Officer Riske, you were there to make observations and basically try to preserve the scene until the detectives... Yes,
Yes.
if we can. Preserve the scene until the investigators arrived. Is that right?
Right.
Have you, in your experience, seen or been trained that the best evidence of preserving evidence at a scene is the use of a videotape that would cover and show us everything in perspective? Have you been so instructed?
Overruled. Question is, has he been so instructed?
Been so instructed?
No.
The crime scenes in which you have participated in the last 4 years, have you seen the LAPD use the videotape or video camera?
No, I haven't.
At no time?
No.
You never went to the Rockingham scene on this date, did you?
No, I
Until
didn't.
late. All right. Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Nothing further.
Ms. Clark? And I assume we have our next witness on his or her way. All right, Peoples 57.
Okay. This photograph, People's 57. You see the logo American Journal at the lower right-hand corner.
Yes.
You see the officer at the scene, at this, walking on this walkway, sir?
Yes, I do.
Does it appear to be broad daylight?
Yes, it does.
And the fact that an officer is still at the scene, does that mean that the crime scene is still intact?
No.
Have officers been, has it in your experience occurred that officers have been at a scene where the crime scene tape is taken down and the crime scene is released?
Yes.
And especially at that particular scene, I think you indicated earlier on cross-examination, sir, that you went to Rockingham to assist in the traffic control at Rockingham?
But that was around midnight.
At Rockingham?
Right.
At midnight on June the
Right.
13th?
Right.
Why were you still working traffic control there at midnight?
Overruled.
Because the news media had set up around Mr. Simpson's house, and the neighbors complained about noise and traffic congestion.
And so what about at Bundy? Was there traffic control being coordinated at Bundy as well?
We had Bundy shut down for a time,
The whole street shut down.
from Dorothy to Gorham.
And was that while you were there?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, was traffic control maintained there for some time after that?
I'll speculate he left at 7:15.
She asked to his knowledge if he knows.
We opened it up before I left.
Okay. And then what about media control, though, and crowd control? Was that still something being done at Bundy?
There was no media or crowd when I left. I don't know.
That's it's 7:15.
Right.
Were you there later in the day?
Again, it'd be between 11:15 and midnight.
In Bundy?
Right.
Okay. And what did you see at Bundy at 11:15 or midnight on June the 13th?
Just people standing on the sidewalk taking pictures that said, free OJ or
Signs and stuff?
onlookers.
So there were still people crowding around Bundy at midnight on June the 13th?
That's correct.
Overruled.
Good enough. You were shown the photographs of Detective Furman pointing to evidence, and then other photographs. Then you were shown photograph 56G.
Right.
Did those photographs, sir, appear to be taken from different perspectives?
Yes, they did.
Overruled.
Now, Mr. Goldman is shown part of him in People's 56D. Does that appear to be blood on his jeans?
Yes, it does.
Did he appear to be fairly bloody, sir?
Yes.
And what about the boot shown in People's 56G? Do you see a part of the boot in that is still white?
Yes, I do.
And the red part, does that appear to be blood, sir?
Appears to be blood and dirt.
You recall the position in which Mr. Goldman's body was wedged around the stump up against the gate?
Sustained. Sustained. Sustained.
All right,
Previous question.
can we cut the feed, Your Honor?
Yes.
People's?
People's 59.
People's 59, Your Honor?
All right.
You see the position of Mr. Goldman shown in People's 59, sir?
Yes, I do.
Is that the way you found him, sir?
Yes, it is.
How big did he appear to be to you?
5'10", 5'11".
About 180 pounds?
Possibly 190. I don't know.
Have you ever tried to lift? And you testified this was a small area where you found him, right?
Right.
Have you ever tried to lift a 180-pound, 5'11" dead person from a small area like
Overruled.
that?
Overruled.
Not from a small area like that, but I have lifted a 5'11" dead person.
About 180, 190 pounds?
I really don't remember the weight.
Pretty hard to do,
Yes.
especially in a small area like that.
Right.
Do you know that, did you know that one of the coroner's investigators that removed the body was a woman?
I don't know.
Just a moment, I object. The
Sustained.
wasn't even there.
Sustain. Dangerous territory.
Sir, are you acquainted with a man by the name of Lieutenant Spangler?
Yes.
Did you see him at the Bundy scene that night?
Yes, I did.
And when the four detectives left to go to Rockingham to notify the defendant, was Lieutenant Spangler at the scene?
Perform that question. That's part of that question. Objection.
Overruled.
Was he at the scene before they left, or?
At the time that they left, was Lieutenant Spangler at the scene, if you know?
I didn't see him leave. I don't know. I saw him before. They had talked about leaving. I didn't see him leave. I don't know if he was still there or not.
You don't know if Lieutenant Spangler was still there when the detectives left or not?
No, I don't.
But you did see him at the scene before they left?
Yes, I did.
Mr. Cochran?
Just brief questions, Your Honor. Do you know how many cars went to Rockingham?
No, I don't.
And with regard to that photograph of Mr. Goldman where you saw that he was covered with blood, you would expect also that his assailant would also be covered with blood, would you not?
Objection, that calls for speculation.
Yes, he can answer that. If he can talk about that, he can talk about this, Your Honor.
Sustain.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, counsel. All right, Officer Riske, you are now excused. Please don't discuss your testimony with anybody other than the lawyers from the case. And I'm going to excuse you for today. You may be recalled, however. All right, thank you, sir. All right, people's next witness. Certainly. How about if we get the witness on his or her way, though?